of Ramona Shelburne. Great to have you back, Momo. Back to the finals for Tatum and Brown. Here's the all-time list of teammate playoff games played without a title. Can they break through? And how Boston's run has set them up. And is tonight the night for Dallas? I can't stop looking at Luka looking hard here. Let's go around the horn.
Hey, Tony, you want to go to Waffle House after the show?
Don't start, man. These conference finals following a similar script every game, it seems like. A late lead blown and a sweep. Again, Indy couldn't believe they let it slip out of their hands, and Boston took it away. The Celtics advanced to the NBA Finals, 12-2 now this postseason, through increasingly injured teams, as many have pointed out, in the Eastern Conference, and close games. But look here, through total win percentage and margin, this is regular postseason combined, approaching rarefied air. So there's a ping pong match here between easiest run ever and great all-time run. Kevin Clark, where do you come down? Around the horn to you.
I will start with the mea culpa. After game one, I came on this show and I said the Pacers were the better team in game one. The game just got away from them.
Thank you for your culpa,
I didn't know failing in the clutch was a feature, not a bug, of this year's Indiana Pacers. They are the first team since at least 1998, when they started tracking this stuff, where they led in 3 games of a 4-game sweep in the last 3 minutes. In those situations, they had more turnovers than assists. The Boston Celtics played fine in those situations, but there's an old war adage, do not interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. The Pacers had a series of mistakes. This was a disaster. They should feel bad about losing.
And point blank, answer the question. Do you see this Boston run as, well, this is an easy run, maybe one of the easiest we've ever seen, or do you see this as 12-2 with the regular season? This is an all-time regular post run.
This is a great run for the Boston Celtics. You can only beat the teams that are in front of you. They're making it look easy. They are the dominant team. They are making this look like an easy run. This is a Celtic-centric run.
Has it looked easy, though, is the question I would ask after those 4 close games. Ramona Shelburne, around the horn to you.
Look, this run means absolutely nothing unless they win, because that's how successful Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been throughout their careers. And they've set themselves up as this historically great regular season team. 64 wins in the regular season. Nobody even close to them pushing them for second. They're blowing everyone away in the playoffs. Yes, everyone's hurt, but they're also winning games so they're not tired. They're closing these series out early. We don't even bring up that they don't have Porzingis the entire time, and they'll have to reintegrate him for the finals. But I think the biggest thing for me at the end of this series was seeing Jaylen Brown win the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. Jaylen Brown, who is always great, highest paid player in the NBA, and yet never really wins anything, as he said himself. Because it was he really wanted to win all defense. He really wanted to be all NBA. He was the MVP of the conference finals. I think that means something going into the finals, where both Tatum and Brown will.
And you agree with that vote, Brown over Tatum?
I think I do. I think defensively, and also in that game, he had the 40-point game when they really needed him. I think
and the game-winning shot.
That was the right call.
And then he had the non-flagrant flagrant two. Somehow that was allowed to slide last night. Courtney Cronin, I turn to you now.
If only these games were 43, 44 minutes instead of the regulation 48, maybe the Pacers would have been able to capitalize on the 90% chance they had, the win probability at some point in the fourth quarters, games 1, 3, and 4. If you're Indiana, you're feeling unbelievable regret over late game defense, late game decision making, and the late game execution that plagued this team. They had a chance to go up by double digits with 8:35 last night when TJ McConnell had a wide open look for a layup, and he missed it. And instead, Boston goes on a 20-8 run to end the game. The inability to execute down the stretch, whether you had Tyrese Halliburton playing or not, is something that they've got to consider this offseason as they try to use this moment to take one step forward. Making it to the Eastern Conference Finals was a big step of improvement. They reworked their roster at the deadline to get here. It's just that they were not able to close out, which says more about them than it does about
Wow, that's somewhat critical for a team that made the Final Four and played the last 2 games here without, I think they'd all agree, their best player. Justin Tinsley, when it comes to the Boston Celtics, do you see this as a team that is taking, benefits here of an easy run with injuries amounting for other teams? Or do you see this as a team that's been on an all-time heater now, regular season and post?
Yeah, they had a great regular season. Obviously, they look dominant at times in the postseason, but I can't say all time unless they complete the deal, as Ramona said. But I really want to focus on Indiana, and in particular, a quote from Pascal Siakam after the game. He basically said, "Look, when I was in Toronto, when we won in 2019, I just figured we'd get back there at least every other year." And now what he's telling his teammates is this: look, greatness is not a luxury. Greatness is a tax. Just because you're great once does not mean you're going to be great 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. So when I look at the Pacers, yes, there is regret there. They got swept, but they only got swept by 27 points. 27 points decided the entire series. In the final 3 minutes of regulation and overtime and things like that, they shot 38% from the field. They didn't even score the last 3.5 minutes. So if you're Indiana, it's like, yes, we had a great season, but this series was in our hands, and now they're going to the offseason.
So you're with Courtney here, that this series is about the Pacers' failures and not the Celtics winning the series 4-0.
Yeah, because we all know what Boston's end goal actually is. We didn't expect the Pacers to be in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay, well then everything you just said, then how does that apply? Ramona Shelburne, back to you.
Listen, you can say the Celtics didn't play anybody, that Jimmy Butler was hurt, or Joel Embiid was hurt, Giannis hurt, everybody, Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. But you know what? The other years that when they got to the finals in 2022, you know what Jason Tatum said after the finals? I was exhausted. I ran out of gas. Okay, so what they've been doing is conserving themselves all season long. Jason Tatum was able to take games off at the end of the regular season. He didn't have to go. They didn't let these series extend, and they didn't have one of their best players the entire playoff run.
I think you could recognize that the end goal has to be win a championship for the Celtics, but still, for me, we did the previews. Nobody had Indiana winning the series. When Halliburton went out, nobody had Indiana winning the last 2 games of the series, as close as they were. This is a team that won a Game 7 at Madison Square Garden to get into the Final Four.
Yep.
I think you have to feel good about the Pacers, no matter how the series kind of ended its own way. We've been horned, we'll move on. Wolves, Mavs, Game 4 tonight. Here's the script. Minnesota, once again, getting out front and then losing it late. And here's another script. Minnesota has the highlights, but like those two immersed in conversation in the back, missed the big finish and Dallas takes over. Coming back from 0-3 would, of course, have to be historic. But winning tonight doesn't need to be, Ramona. So what's the number one thing Minnie needs to do tonight to have hope?
They got to get Anthony Edwards some space. And I know this is going to sound a bit radical, but Rudy Gobert is out there for his defense. But in this series, he is clogging the lane for his offense. And I think if people are focusing on Karl-Anthony Towns and why doesn't he get in the post and why is he standing out on the three-point line, especially when he can't hit a three-pointer at all, he's shooting 13% from 3. But the reason he's out there at the three-point line is to create space for Anthony Edwards. And in this series, when no one's hitting from the outside, Anthony Edwards has no room to move. He's also expending way too much energy guarding Kyrie Irving. So you're asking him to carry you offensively when you have no room and then play defense on a guy that no one can chase down. He's the second coming of Reggie Miller out there running around the court. It's too much on a 22-year-old, even though he's in amazing shape and still.
Wow, so that's a full-on pass for Anthony Edwards. This is too much. They just beat the defending champs, and now this is too much. Courtney Cronin, to you.
I have a radical idea as it pertains to Karl-Anthony Towns. Maybe instead of shooting all of these threes, 13.6% in the conference finals, maybe to get going offensively, instead of doing that, you drive and then you look for a mid-range shot, or you kick it out to the elbow, or you try to attack the rim.
Okay.
There's got to be some sort of solution other than him trying to shoot from downtown throughout the series. And again, this might go against conventional logic, but if they go big tonight, they did it a little bit throughout the series. 11 minutes, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, and Karl-Anthony Towns, their offensive efficiency rating and defensive efficiency rating, 133 and 104.5. That's not bad. It's a small sample size. But again, what do you have to lose? We've never seen a team come back from an 0-3 deficit. If this looks pretty bleak down the stretch, maybe you
That was the big
trade
advantage in defeating Denver. I hear what
wisdom.
you're saying, Courtney. It has not proven to be, or it didn't seem like that was going to be their track to beat Dallas. Justin Tinsley, the number one thing Minnesota needs to do tonight.
They can't crumble in the clutch. For all the things about Minnesota, they need to do this better. They need to do that better. They've been in every game. They've been winning every game
Indiana.
except for the clutch. Yeah. And so when you look back at the numbers, during the regular season, Dallas was first in offensive efficiency and clutch time. Minnesota was 22nd. That's the series right there. Dallas has trailed with 5 minutes to go in every single game. And when you look at games 1 through 3, the final 3 minutes, Minnesota is 3 of 12 from the field and 0 of 7 from three-point line. If they're even decent from the field in 3, they can steal a game. That's the most important part.
You guys were very critical of Indiana, who maybe superseded their expectation. This is a team that just beat the defending champs and said, this feels great. I can't wait for the next one. Well, we're in the next one. It's 0-3. Kevin Clark, to you.
End of game execution. Justin is right. They have not made a clutch 3 in this series. They have 6 turnovers and 1 assist in those situations. Ramona mentioned Rudy Gobert's defense. That's why he's there. Well, he's not even doing that. As the primary defender, the Mavericks are shooting 71% against Rudy Gobert. This is a disaster. The curse of being the best player on the team is you get unfairly blamed. But Anthony Edwards has to do something. He has to carry the franchise on his back if they're going to steal one.
Make your predictions for tonight, Mr. Clark.
Yeah, I think they win. I think they steal one.
Minnesota. Tinsley, how about you?
Yeah.
Minnesota.
And Courtney Cronin.
Timberwolves, but it ends in 5.
And Shelburne.
I think the Mavs close
All
it out.
right, so that's 3 for Minnesota. That's the only thing standing between us and a week plus off before the NBA Finals.
Ooh.
All right, till next. Something we've never seen before. Jubilation from fans over the retiring of an umpire. Baseball fans making all-time greatest terrible call videos of Angel Hernandez as he announces his retirement. We're ready for Sarah McLachlan in the arms of Angel playing behind these. There are also fans who are saying they would post threads of his best calls, legitimate best calls, and then they would end the thread immediately because the joke being he's had no good calls his whole career. Momo, what is this and what does his retirement mean to you and to baseball?
You know, I always want to be on the side of the umpires, right? They have a hard job. All they do is get yelled at, and people only notice when they make mistakes. It's just that he really is defined by those mistakes he makes and also his response to them. Like, he makes a mistake and doubles down on it. Like, he came back, he only umpired 11 games last year, comes back, and he has the largest missed strike call in umpire auditor history. He called the ball in Wyatt Langford. It was 6.5 inches outside, and he called it a strike. It's like setting records. And not only does he not feel bad about it, he throws you out of the game when you argue with him. Like, it's the lack of humility and remorse that was hard for fans and for players.
And you use the present tense for all that. It's now past tense. He has retired or quote-unquote retired. Courtney Cronin, your view of Angel Hernandez saying goodbye to baseball and vice versa.
Yeah, happy trails to inconsistent and wide strike zones everywhere. I hope that we eventually get robo-umps to make sure that those are uniform. I don't know if this is going to change relations between umpires and players going forward because you do then pass off the disdain that players have for Angel Hernandez onto Hunter Wendelstedt, somebody else who gets very frustrated when he's questioned, CB Buckner. Maybe he's going to take a page out of the Joe West handbook and start editing his own Wikipedia page, reflecting back on his history as a Major League Baseball umpire.
Justin Tinsley on baseball saying goodbye to Angel Hernandez.
Tony Reali, if I told you this was my last Around the Horn ever and you said hell yeah, you would see a grown man cry on national TV. That's probably what he feels like. We're talking about a guy who called 10 games last year and missed 161 calls. That's 16 calls a game. If you're a player, if you're a coach, if you're a fan, you're waking up like, hey, baby, it's a new day. It's a new world. The birds are chirping louder. The sky is super blue. It's a new day.
Clark.
What's funny is that by auditing, he was not the worst umpire. He had just the worst demeanor. He acted his way into everyone believing he was the worst umpire. That is over now. He had the ability, because he took everything personally, to ruin a game, ruin a series, ruin an afternoon. If a kid went to go see a specific player, he was a disaster for the game. I'm glad it's over. I just hope his legacy is that umpires
there's a distinct possibility this retirement is not a retirement. It's one of these forced retirements. We know the history between he and baseball over the last couple of years. Well, a lot of pent-up frustration from fans. You saw that. We've never seen anything like that before. We'll move on. Buy or sell too. Speaking of pent-up frustration, here's let's go to Milwaukee last night. Greg Cancel, manager of the Cubs, returns to the place he managed and left this offseason for more money, and he heard the boos. Brewers won 5-1 in the game. Courtney, what does that response mean to you?
I'm not sure what the Brewers were thinking, Tony. Like, he left for a division rival 90 miles away after spending a lot of years with the Brewers and bringing that team a lot of success. Did they not know what happened in November? Like, the sign for the youth park in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, named after him, got vandalized. Brewers fans are not ready to welcome back Craig Counsell with open arms after he spurned their team for more money, but they should be feeling pretty good considering they have a 4.5-game lead in the NL Central over
Dustin Tinsley, that response.
I guess the tribute video makes sense. He's a hometown kid. His dad worked for the organization. He led the team to 3 NL Central titles as a manager. And I'm also not mad at him taking a $40 million contract. That makes a lot of dollars and cents. But honestly, if I'm the fans, more of it. Boo him every time, because guess what? You can leave for a quote-unquote better job, but you better not go within the division to the Chicago Cubs. That's exactly
Kevin
what
Clark.
he did. Boo louder next time.
Has anyone mentioned that the Brewers are 4.5 games clear of the Chicago
did,
Cubs
yes.
right now? They've
Thank you for listening.
upgraded. Okay, so everything is fine there, but I support any and all sports grudges. I've been mad at Shaquille O'Neal for leaving Orlando for almost 3 decades. I've mad at Dwight Howard for 12 years. I understand that this sport runs on hatred and grudges. I will always support booing in that
So the
regard.
question is, for them to play, though, great video for their returning former manager who scored them. Ramona, buy or sell?
Guys, Courtney asked, what were the Brewers thinking? I think they knew exactly what they were doing.
Okay.
I think they gave the people what they wanted. Here's your chance to boo this guy. They knew they wanted to boo him. They knew they needed to boo him. That had to come out at some point, and they did it at the time when he would expect maximum booing, right? And good, like you're from the Midwest, you know, Milwaukee and Chicago. That's like big brother, little brother. That's like up the interstate. It's an hour and a half. Like you don't just leave and go to the big
Once again,
city
though,
for the big money and not expect to get. I think he knew
Pent-up
exactly what he was walking
frustration.
into.
All that emotion had to come out and go somewhere. You can't leave that bottled in.
Yeah.
Dustin Tinsley, Kevin Clark, thanks for your time today. Mona Shelby, Courtney Cronin, that's our showdown next.
This is the play, and I think after game 2 where they played really well and didn't close that one, they didn't close this one, I think they're going to really lament these 2 games.
About time, Jason Robertson. This guy had not scored a goal in the last 10 games going into game 3, and he's apparently a goal-a-game guy, according to his head coach.
About
Good time for this to
she
happen.
says. Wow, that is a hot take to get a point. How about this? Home ice, which usually means very little, admittedly, means nothing this postseason. The road teams just every night getting wins. We'll move on. Showdown 2. Oh, check this out. This is the inaugural Walter Cup. PWHL Minnesota's double overtime championship winning goal. Disallowed for interference. All that celebration, no. 70 seconds later, Boston scoring to win it and forcing game 5. So, questions. Can Minnesota come back from thinking they won the title but losing the game then to win game 5 Wednesday? Or does Boston have the psychological advantage now, Courtney?
Land of 10,000 lakes, land of confounding losses. We saw it the same day the Timberwolves lost game 3. I don't know how you come back when there's gloves and there's sticks and everything all over the ice thinking you had won, but this was legitimate interference with the goalie.
Mona Shelburne.
Look, I'm going to go back in time to my high school basketball career. I hit what would have been a game-winning shot. There's 10 seconds left in the game. We hadn't won a game all year. We all started celebrating. My coach turns to us and says, don't act like you haven't been there before. There's still 10 seconds left. We haven't won yet. Well, guess what? Actually, they have been there. They have been there before. They know what it feels like to win. And now they're going to be ready for this coming up game.
You know what? As far as the debate goes, that was a well-argued point. You celebrated with 10 seconds left in a game, a game-winning shot?
We hadn't won a game all year. I'd never hit a game-winning shot
game?
like that. Yeah, we did.
Okay,
We did. We held on, but
well,
only
then it
because our
counts as a
coach
game-winning
reminded us
shot.
there's 10 seconds left.
We'll move on. Showdown 3, French Open. Ramona, was that disqualification worthy?
I think it's up there. I think it is disqualification worthy. You got to know, you're not on center court. There's fans right on top of you right there. And you can't just lose your mind and hit the ball into the stands 100 miles an hour.
Cronin.
No disqualification for the French player. I smell a conspiracy.
Wow, Courtney, you are just unbelievable. That's how you win a FaceTime. Take it, Courtney.
Yeah, sorry, I'm out of control today. NFLPA is reportedly proposing an overhaul to the offseason program. Now, this would not do away with OTAs. It would just move it further into the summer, so there might be a 6-week ramp-up period going straight into training camp. And we can argue about when the best vacation window is for everybody involved, players, coaches, front office personnel. But what the NFLPA really needs to do here is make sure that they walk away with more than just a schedule change. They need
Rangers and Panthers at 8 Eastern, plus what Tua in year 3 could look like in this Dolphins offense. New sound from his head coach.
Also, Kevin, PTI coming back in a few minutes. They're going to tell you who's the tougher matchup for the Celtics, the Mavericks or the Timberwolves. Of course, we're going to start there, as the Wolves are on the brink of a sweep and maybe some history after the Celtics took down the Pacers. Could we see for the first time in NBA history a conference sweep? Well, the Timberwolves are hoping no. And we already know history's not on their side, guys. No team has ever made a 3-0 comeback, and only 39% of teams have actually even forced a Game 5. With that said, it is a near pick'em tonight, according to the odds on ESPN Bet. As for Dallas, they're seeking just their third best-of-7 sweep in franchise history. Their last sweep was in 2011 against the Lakers. Coincidentally, it's also the last time they won the NBA title. Luckily for the Mavs, they have what's historically the best closer in NBA history on their roster. His name's Kyrie Irving, and he is a perfect 14-0 in his career in series-clinching opportunities. It's not only the longest streak by any player to start a career, but the longest streak by any player, period. He broke Robert Horry's record earlier this postseason.
Let's go on the scene here, El, to Dallas, where we've got reporters covering both teams. Dave McMenamin is with the Timberwolves. Tim McMahon is with the Mavericks. Dave, let's start with the underdogs. What's Minnesota's mindset heading into an elimination game?
Kevin, this is a confident group. Naz Reid told me the other night, if there's any team that's going to come back from down 3-0 to win a series, it's going to be us. And at shoot-around this morning, you saw a loose group. They were shooting half-court shots. Some of the guys were taking jump shots with their offhand. Ant Edwards playing a game of pig against assistant coach Joe Boylan. And when we were speaking to Karl Anthony Towns, who's in the midst of a historic shooting slump, his three-point shooting over the last 5 games, by some measure, is the worst in NBA playoff history. Anthony Edwards walked by us and said, Cat's going to hit 8 threes tonight, y'all. And Cat said, hey, that's a pretty good prediction. It's lovely. I hope it comes true. But Cat said as well that he has maintained a sense of positivity, a sense of confidence. He is putting in the work in between games, getting up jump shots, and he's not going to change his approach. He's not going to be a wilting lily with the pressure on him. We'll see if it's just talk or they can back it up, because thus far in this series, they really have backed it up until it comes down to the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game. They've really struggled down the stretch in games, and Cat said that is the time we need to focus even more so to figure things out.
8 threes in one game. Keep in mind, Cat is shooting 28% in this series, including just 14% from 3. Dave, with the very latest from Dallas, El?
Yeah, much more on Dallas, because if the Mavs are going to sweep tonight, they're going to do it shorthanded. Derek Lively doubtful for tonight with a neck injury, and he's quietly been one of the most important pieces for the Mavs this postseason. Dallas has outscored opponents by 109 points. With Lively on the floor in the postseason, it's the second best plus-minus by any rookie over the last 25 years. Only Manu Ginobili was better back in 2003, when the Spurs, coincidentally, also won that title. And we're joined now for the Dallas perspective by Tim McMahon, who's on the scene. And Tim, what can you tell us about the Mavericks' plan to manage this game tonight, given that it's unlikely they're going to have Lively?
Howdy, El. You just heard McMenamin talking about Cat's going to hit 8 threes tonight, or at least that's what Ant says. Well, the Mavericks are getting a guy back, hopefully tonight, who actually has hit 8 threes in a playoff game against Rudy Gobert, for that matter. I'm talking about Maxi Kleber. He's been out since the closeout game, the closeout win against the Clippers, with a sprain or a separated AC joint in his right shoulder. He's questionable. He's going to see how it goes during warm-ups, but the plan is that he will play tonight. And look, he just started shooting threes in the practice gym again a few days ago, so I think you'll certainly see the Wolves see what his shot looks like before they close out aggressively. But Maxi Kleber was a big part of that Western Conference run, a couple of finals run a couple of years ago. Really helped them in the first round, and again, they're hoping to get him back. So next man up mentality, and you know, one guy out, another guy coming back.
Yeah, you mentioned that Clippers game, 15 points in that pivotal Game 5 win over the Clippers in the first round. We've got much more ahead on this particular game as we say thank you to Tim McMahon, the latest from Dallas. Kevin?
We'll see if we'll have broomsticks in Dallas tonight. About last night, deja vu all over again for the Celtics and Pacers in the East Finals. The broomsticks did come out in Indiana, and the Pacers had an 8-point lead with 6 minutes left, but then it was all seized. Jaylen Brown eventually tied it up with a floater, then fed Derek White. Oh, that